Welcome to the Ruby Hour, a podcast produced by our company, Ruby Riot Creatives. We specialize in video production and content marketing, and we're based in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm Shelby Ring.
And I'm Madeline Rager.
This podcast is devoted to interviewing extraordinary people doing extraordinary things and nuggets of wisdom that they've learned along their journey. Also, just want to give you a heads up, we have potty mouths and we're talking about inappropriate things. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of the Ruby Hour. I am Shelby Ring, and I have the fabulous chef Shaun Brian. Thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure.
Freaking pumped. Okay, so let me give you the deets on who this man is, all right? So Chef Shaun Brian started a life in a 2-person tent surrounded by plantation ruins in the flats of Coral Bay, St. John. And for those of you that don't know, that's one of the U.S. Virgin Islands, and it's in the Caribbean. It's not St. John's, whatever, okay? So,
thank you for
all right,
that.
so we're just going to nip that in the bud, all right? So it was in this environment that Shaun's love for cooking began, through roaming and foraging, literally through the local valley, fishing off his dad's sailboat, and cooking for sometimes up to 8 siblings at a time. These challenges of being in an island in the middle of the Caribbean are the source of his inspiration to his innovative culinary approach. So as a graduate of Johnson & Wales, his culinary career led him to be named in the 30 Under 30 by Zagat, and has been nominated for a Rising Star by StarChefs, and has been invited to cook at the James Beard House. Like, drop the mic and walk out of here at this point. I mean, like, literally, what the heck? Like, and, you know, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you on a personal level. We've surfed together, all of the things, and, yeah, how the heck did you end up in Charleston, of all places?
Oh, hurricanes. Definitely hurricanes. Irma and Maria just came through and ripped the islands apart, and I had my daughter Riley on her way, and I needed to make some roots somewhere else. So Charleston was a place where I always wanted to check out. I came here and I fell in love, from the history to the camaraderie amongst chefs, the love for dogs, the demographic sort of being laid out like New York City, the accessibility of farm to table, as well as the coastal community and surfing. So definitely just brought me here and made me feel at home, and now I'm never leaving.
That's freaking awesome. So you currently, right now, you are running the show with one of my favorite culinary places in Charleston, Parcel 32. People, let me just tell you right now, if you have not gone there and just done a full out appetizers, cocktails, dinner, you know, everything is like freaking insane there. Like, I can't not go there when we go downtown. Like, I love it. And so how did you get tied into, you know, with rocking and rolling with Parcel, building out that menu? Like, what is your ideal, where's your sweet spot of your cooking style?
So we focus on coastal Carolina, low country Caribbean cuisine. So we tie in that Caribbean. It's really a focus on all the different foodways of Charleston and what's helped develop and make Charleston over the years, but also what Charleston is today. So that was really the inspiration. And then it's in a family home, a single family home, and essentially we wanted to make it feel like you're at home when you're there. So a lot of shareable items, a lot of coastal seafood, and then a lot of different things inspired from all the farms that we get. So about 90% of our menu is all local.
So freaking cool. I love that. I feel like farm to table or marsh to table is something people like to talk about, and it's like
marsh to table.
You know, and it's like to really take it full circle, and it's like, no, we're really seeking out those local farmers and fishermen, and that's awesome. And how did that tie into when you were growing up? Like, walk me through, like,
yeah,
because also when we were coming back from surfing that one day, we're like driving down Folly Road, and you're like, oh yeah, you can eat that. Oh yeah, that's really great if you know, this works as like a green bean substitute. Like, you blew our minds with like literally seeing roadside stuff and knowing what you could eat. So what was your journey with that?
So it really started in the Caribbean as a kid. I was just always in the bush, and when we were bored at home and we weren't in school, me and my brother were like in flip-flops and our underwear, just like exploring the valley, like through ruins and stuff. And sometimes we would get hungry, so we'd find something that we could snack on, or sometimes we get a scrape from like kasha, which is like hooks on it, sort of thorns that like pull you in, and they really rip you up. So we'd like find aloe and put aloe on it. Or we didn't brush our teeth that morning because we were little boys. And we would take fuzzy sage and actually brush our teeth with that, which actually you would read about in the indigenous days that they would use that as sort of a way to maintain oral hygiene.
Whoa.
And really like roadside like driving and like exploring, especially if I'm not the one driving, I really get into like just like getting an idea of what my surroundings are and what I see, and sort of like making some mental notes on places I want to go and go hit up and check out. And it's really all about always learning, and then there's just some basic rules, know what you're gonna get, like 110%. Don't like assume you know what it is and eat it. If you don't, gather some, take it home, use your field books to understand it. The first time you try it, test a little bit of it, because there's still things, even though it's edible, could be growing in a toxic area. So you always want to be careful, and then at least identify 3 or 4 different things in its habitat that really identify with it, so that it helps you just confirm the fact that you identify it. And those are really more so when you're doing mushroom foraging, because that's like real technical. And that's like one of my new passions in some way, but like especially the way I've gone down the rabbit hole in it right now. So and then we just try, my whole life it's sort of been an incorporation into my operations. In Martha's Vineyard, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm sure, I really got into who I was as a chef and really started to understand my love for foraging up there. So now here in Charleston, it sort of is like the medium between the Caribbean, where I'm from, and the Northeast, where I found myself as a chef, and it just meets in the middle. And if you go north of here, you stop seeing like tropical ingredients like cassava growing wild on the bluffs of the beach here, or prickly pear, Nepal tuna, and so many other things. But then I also get things that I would find up in the Northeast, like all kinds of different mushrooms, sea beans, and lots of really cool stuff.
Ooh, so cool. Okay, so if there's a zombie apocalypse, this is your guy. You want to be like part of the crew for that. I love it. We're always looking at, in our company, like ways that we are growing, developing, refining. And, you've mentioned that you've had some unique challenges of growing with the Parcel 32 family and really expanding with that team and the caliber of what you're working with. Break that down for me. What's been your journey?
Yeah, so restaurants in general have just been like really taxing industry to be in general. They really incorporate every component of business and like psychology into one operation.
So true.
From perishable products to mental health to long hours to fire, gas. I mean, you name it, it's involved in the hospitality industry. And that's a challenge on its own. And my whole career, I've really spent trying to sort of mold it into a sustainable or even regenerative industry that we can actually improve on. And there's a lot of things that have worked for me, and there's a lot of things that haven't. Parcel 32 has been one of those operations where I've really been given everything to be able to put together my best foot forward. So from doing the build out there, and having, a very healthy budget to work with, and knowing the longevity of the restaurant will be sustained because of the family that owns it. They're invested in it. They're not just financially, they're also like, their heart is into it. So those things all really spoke out to me. And then putting a team together to actually operate it is always the hardest component of operating. And now we're in a place where I feel like I have one of the best teams I've ever had in my entire career. but it's taken, a few people. So some of them are still there from day one, which is great. We've had very minimal turnover, especially for like the industry standard.
Yeah.
And where we are now, I really attribute to the people that I put in power, and the way that I've let them take ownership and ability to make their operation feel like it's a part of them and not just like me telling them what to do. And so John Coleman, who's my chef de cuisine, who's basically the chef in charge of running the kitchen for me, I say I've been courting him for like 4 months before I got him, and we just became friends, and he was looking for some growth and looking for more resources in his field and what he wanted to do, and I felt like I could offer him that. And at the time I was looking for someone like that in position, and the fit was right, the time was right. I brought him on, and then he's helped maintain my standards that we both share. They're his and mine, and we collaborate on everything we do. We communicate a lot, more than probably any relationship I've ever been in.
Wow.
Which is a huge key to being successful in it. And it just all sort of fell in place. Now we have, a team all the way down to the person who's making the salads in the restaurant could all easily be chefs at like any restaurant in Charleston.
Wow.
And they want to work there because of the environment.
Yeah.
And so that works really nicely, but at the same time it comes with its own challenges, like egos. Everyone has their own idea of how everything should be done.
Yeah.
So, but and they're not wrong. It's just, what are we doing? Let's be a team, and let's do it the same way, because we all are able and capable of working every single position, and we regularly do, including me working in the dish pit. If we are short someone or they just need help, we all chip in. We're all team players, and that's really what's helped us make the operation successful. But we constantly sit down and have meetings and sort of brainstorm on how we can communicate better, how we can be more on the same page. So actively always listening and communicating and growing.
That's just unheard of. I feel like in the restaurant scene, it's like there's always like one rogue person, or like someone's just like deviating, or like it's like you are like orchestrating a symphony of everyone has to be a key player, and if there's those slight variations, there's so many layers of how do we keep a consistent experience for the people that come in and are dining with you.
Yeah, it's like definitely a day-to-day, just like you have to take the approach as, one step at a time, and not really let it overwhelm you, and know that tonight you're preparing for battle, and battle starts at 5 p.m. when the doors open.
Yeah. So I love, it's like, I'm a big believer of, if, you obviously are operating in a role of leadership where you see the value of like truly delegating and empowering people, versus what you said of, oh well, they're not just having to like appease what I'm expecting, they're in their seat and they're empowered to do them. In your trajectory, walk me through where you've cooked and how you've cooked, and what brought you full circle to where you are today in your career.
Yeah, so I really fell in love with food from a young age, because I grew up pretty poor and I wanted to eat like all the nice things. Whenever I go out to like dinner, I'd be like, oh, can I get that? And it was like the most expensive thing on the menu.
Yes.
I was more interested in like the lobster and like the ribeye component of it, rather than the price.
Yeah.
I wasn't really thinking about that, but those environments really helped me solidify who I am as a chef, and sort of led me through a path to where I am. And my mom was a midwife. She also ran a children's store, grew up really holistic, so I was introduced to nutrition as being important. And then being in the Caribbean in St. John, especially in Coral Bay, it's very old world still.
Yeah.
And has a lot of down island influences, as well as a ton of history and indigenous history as well with the Tainos. And these things all like subconsciously influenced me as I was coming up. And then I went to Johnson Wales University in Rhode Island, and I really just did a 2-year associate's programs because I knew food would allow me to travel and I'd always allow me to have a job. So I did that. I made sure I did good in school, so I got a lot of scholarships because I knew I'd have to pay for it myself.
Yep.
So like, unlike a lot of kids, I took it really seriously, and I really took as much out of it as I could, and I worked with the teachers that were considered the most difficult, and then I made sure before I even went, I got right in the industry and started working, and I worked at a Pacific Rim restaurant in St. John, and really this was like almost that old school kitchen environment like Anthony Bourdain would talk about a lot, RIP, but it was really, a lot of hazing, a lot of, burns, and I was the lowest guy on the totem pole. So, and it was a pretty masculine environment, especially in those days. And the St. John's always like 10 years behind everything. And so it was good to come up in that and see like sort of like what it was like and really earn my stripes. But at the same time, I saw a lot of things that I wasn't really behind,
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be progressive. And after culinary school, I just made sure I was always working at the hardest place to get a job at. And that led me through some of the best kitchens in St. John. And then I did my externship at the Ritz-Carlton in St. Thomas, where I worked under the chef Andrew Chadwick, who worked under two of like the best chefs in the world at the time, Michel Brass, who's like the plating god of vegetables, and just like this amazing French chef that was doing technical plate ups and cookery before like anyone even knew about it. Before like Spain blew up with gastronomic like cuisine, and it was Ferran Adrian and Juan Marie Artsac. All these people were like, Juan Marie really is another one, but that actually comes full circle. And after I did that, I actually went to legal studies at Florida Gulf Coast University, but I went with a focus on commercial real estate in an effort to understand more of the legal side of restaurants and hospitality businesses.
Wow.
And then minored in art history. And then that took me to a job in Naples. It was like a 700 cover like steakhouse right near the Ritz-Carlton, and it was about volume, and it was about...
This is Naples, Florida?
Naples, Florida.
Okay. Yeah.
Not Italy, I wish.
But 700 people? Oh my gosh.
And it was a steakhouse, but I learned a lot from this. So each operation, I took little pieces that were important towards shaping the hospitality industry, and I learned how to standardize. I learned how important it was to have standard operating procedures in place, and just like all the things to make a restaurant tick at that volume, I took those things away from it. And then from there, I moved back to St. John. I got an opportunity to work at run a steakhouse on a hotel property that was freestanding, and it was like super high end. We were only open 5 days a week, so I had 2 days off. The pay was great, and I really brought back the Caribbean into that. And then from there, I went up to Martha's Vineyard to run a boutique luxury hotel called the Harbor View, and that's really where, at that point, I wanted to take the step into the overall hospitality, to become a hospitalitarian. And I needed to be in a boutique luxury place where they really have good ethics and food quality and execution and sourcing. And then I wanted to have all the different components that can be potential for food. So we had room service, we had major event venues. Like this was the #1 place in America for weddings. And we did like all these high profile people, the president at the time, Adam Sandler. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's Tyra Banks.
It's like I was impressed with the president, but then you dropped Adam Sandler, and it's like, all right, that's like a next level.
He was super chill too. So is Tyra, but she loves lobster rolls.
That's awesome.
But up there, I brought in all local ingredients. I brought Truth in Menu back. I also mandated that I was on the executive committee, which most executive chefs aren't. It's usually the food and beverage director. But since it was a chef-driven property, I required that through negotiations, and I got good at negotiations through legal studies.
Dude, oh my gosh, yeah.
And by being on the executive committee, I was able to manipulate the landscaping budget, and I turned that into 585 square feet of organic gardens.
What?
So then we just started incorporating our own gardens, the local farms, the fisheries, and then, really just came together with this island to table concept. And my best friend Nathan Gould, who's runs the 9th best sushi restaurant in the world right now, Oh Yeah, in Boston, we first met in culinary school and twinkle on both of our eyes for food and just like drew to each other instantly. And yeah, he's still one of my best friends, and we ran this hotel together, and he helped me with the steakhouse at St. John. And after that, I went back down to St. John because I wanted to figure out where I was going that was like true to me and spoke to me. And I went down there and worked for one of the chefs that I idolized the most over my entire life. I seen her run the best restaurant in St. John for like 18 years, and she had lost her sous chef before the end of the season, and I said, I'll come down, I'll help you run La Tapa for the rest of the season, and I'll also help like bring some modernist techniques to your restaurant, as well as sort of professionalism and flow through redesigning her kitchen. And she actually trained under Juan Marie Artzac, who that's the tie-in. Whoa. So full circle. She wasn't really ready to, because we had discussed me potentially taking over the kitchen and her stepping out and just sort of being the owner and like walking the floor and being her wonderful self. And she wasn't really quite there yet, which was no problem. At the end of the season, I went my own way, opened up Ocean 362, which was a really truly my restaurant and my concept from start to bottom. I think I built this restaurant out in 20 days, got my family down there and just opened up and did island to table Ocean 362. So, and then from there, I found out that we were going to have a baby, and I went into hyperdrive. I was operating my own salt company, Virgin Salt Co., that I'd started on a small scale, and then that expanded into a new operation in St. Thomas, which was in Hull Bay, and it was like on a 4-acre property with our organic farming license, a 1-acre coconut grove, and I started a smokehouse. And I was smoking with whole coconuts, all local seafood, and sort of modeled it after my best friend's smokehouse company in Martha's Vineyard.
Okay.
And then I was building out this restaurant, and Irma and Maria came, and then that's where we kind of get here again. So long story, but
and then you had to pivot from there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the pivot was the key. But I think like I didn't really realize how much I was affected by the hurricanes, but like once we've gotten a few scares, especially for that last one that was Cat 5, it really just made me realize, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. Like I need to find a focus, and my focus is preparing for the hurricane. The getting through the hurricane parts where like I have the most time on my hands, and I don't really, that's where I start to like realize my disorder a little bit.
Yeah.
And then post though is like where I'm like, okay, into action. Does anyone need anything? What can I do? How can I help? But growing up in St. John and being through like every major hurricane for the last 30 years has been definitely a preparation for me. So,
oh my gosh, that's
talk about what is a zombie apocalypse?
So. Yeah, like again, this is the guy you want to have on your team right here. Yeah. You've had not only, practical development of, who you've evolved as a person, but even being in environments that are constantly, there's risk. There's risk. It's constantly volatile when you're in a place where hurricanes are, it's like hurricane season hits, and like my background was cooking on term charter yachts. And so it was like, the moment that, there was always that window where you're just like ready to buckle up and like, pull everything down, and it's very real. I love how that something that you're involved in. You are one of the co-founders and vice presidents of the West Indian Chefs Alliance. Tell me a little bit about what is that about?
So me and Chef Digby actually started the West Indian Chefs Alliance probably 5 years ago now, I want to say. We basically modeled it after the Northeast Chefs Alliance, and it was in an effort to just sort of bring relevance and bring focus to like-minded chefs and people in the industry that were working on really furthering and making Caribbean West Indian food part of a national and worldwide statement, and really like showcasing it in a way that really highlighted the culture and was true to it, not just like blackened snapper with a mango salsa.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was the effort of it, and we worked really hard on developing it. We worked with the James Beard Foundation, bringing him down to St. Croix to his restaurant, and doing a dinner down there, which was a Friends of the Beard dinner, which then turned into dinners at the Beard House. I think that we've done like 4 dinners now.
Wow.
I actually stepped down from VP and just sort of stepped away from the alliance in whole in order to just sort of let it continue to flourish and grow.
Yeah.
My mission with it was always just to bring relevance and make it a focal point. And once we were getting national media attention from like New York Times and Food and Wine and stuff like that, I decided that it was time for me to sort of back away. Plus, with opening up Parcel 32 and really just having a daughter and being here in Charleston, I had my focuses. So
yeah.
At that point, Digby is still operating and managing the alliance as the president. So.
That's so cool. I appreciated that, because I feel like the Virgin Islands, there's either a stigma of like St. Thomas is like, oh yeah, you go there on a cruise ship, and it's just like one of those exploited spots.
Yeah, it is.
So I appreciate like that angle of like, that's such a grassroots thing to create, like, hey, like let's all band together, and like it's challenging to find that unified front in the Caribbean.
It is. I've found that through multiple different outlets too in the Caribbean, is just it being hard being on isolated islands in some regard, to really come together as a community or an island. Like I'll always say, like, if the whole Caribbean created their own soccer team for the World Cup, they'd like dominate World Cups over and over and over again, because of all the talented players that come from it all. And it's sort of like cricket. The West Indian Cricket League is one of the best in the world, that has won multiple championships over and over, and they're like the team to go after. And we got to get behind those types of things, like these alliances, to help come together and really support the community and just showcase what we have to offer in a true and honest way.
Yeah, where it's not just like the Americanized, like, here's what you would expect from a tropical vacation.
Yeah, cheeseburgers in paradise.
Yeah, no. Don't get me started.
Me either.
I think I have PTSD of listening to those, like a mix of Kenny Chesney and Jimmy Buffett's.
She said it.
Yeah.
Jimmy Buffett's not so bad.
I just have this thing, I see a blue chair and I just want to throw it. No.
Oh, yeah. I see blue chair rum and I just want to throw up.
No, it's so funny. No, it's all good. Whatever people need to, like, they're like, oh my gosh, like, we would have people come down and they wanted to go to every place that Kenny Chesney had created a song around, so it's like, go over to Yost and gotta go see,
So I actually cooked for Kenny a bunch.
Okay.
And yeah. Yeah,
of course you did.
I like Keith Urban a lot better. Let's just put it that way.
That's so
Keith
funny.
Urban's
Oh my
man.
gosh.
Kenny, he's just unfortunately been surrounded by a lot of people that I think have just used him for who he is as a famous person.
Yeah,
and it's really worn on him as
and he's like a generous person. When when hurricane, was it during Maria, and then he like lined up a plane to like get supplies.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely a highlighted individual of it because of his fame, but like St. John in general, every time there's hurricanes or anything like that, the community just comes together, and there is such a wealthy population on the island because 2/3 of it's national park, so all these people build these houses around it that are just insane, whether it's like Bloomberg and stuff or the actual money behind Bloomberg. These people all come together and they really care about the community, and they have good intentions. It's just really hard for the money to go to the right places or be managed by the right people all the time. And Kenny's been a huge part of helping the Caribbean all the time, and I think most people are super grateful of it. I think that a lot of us locals from there, it's just hard for us in terms of how it's changed the tourism industry, where it is those individuals that are like, oh, which seat did Kenny Chesney sit in? Can we get, what did he order? And it's like, dude, there's a lot more, and like he doesn't like this place.
Steak and lobster all night.
Literally, Midwell steak, by the way.
All right. There you go.
New York strip, Midwell, and lobster.
All right, so if you want to eat like Kenny Chesney, giveaway from this podcast episode, that's what you can go order. Go to Parcel 32 and order that, and we're going to see what's going to happen. No, just kidding.
Don't do
You're going to make him relapse and get scared. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Come get our 38-ounce ribeye, though. That thing is beast.
I just like that octopus dish.
Yeah, that's really like, that has a lot of heart on it too. The sauce underneath that octopus dish is sort of like, it should be our national dish in the Virgin Islands, but we call it potato stuffing or potato stuffing.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
You was born here.
Yeah, I'm from there. So we would do like take boniata potatoes, and we would do a sofrito with it, and then we do a little bit of thyme, as Scotch bonnet hot sauce. I usually do like a nice emulsified one with mango and pineapple in it, and do a pineapple ferment, and then we mix all that together with a little bit of tomato paste, and it sort of makes it look like sweet potatoes, but it's like on a much more savory side. And then we put that in a casserole pan, once we make it almost like mashed potatoes, and then we bake it again, so it's stuffing.
Oh my gosh.
But badness.
I think you need to have your own podcast and just explain each dish so people can be like, oh, I'm going to go to sleep in a deep relaxation, and be like, well, tonight on the menu is going to be, I mean, it's like, that sounds insane. And we're going to salsa dancing tonight, and I'm going to be like, wait, y'all are closed on Mondays, right?
Yeah, we're closed definitely on Mondays.
Why? It's like the Chick-fil-A of King Street. You know, you're like, I'm really hungry right now. And you're like, it's Sunday.
Yeah.
Why do you got to be all conservative and like have good ethics and shit? Yeah. No, that's...
You got to make them work 7 days a week. That's part of the reason why we have low turnover.
Really?
Just creating a schedule that's sustainable and an environment that's sustainable. And then also paying appropriate wages.
That's right.
You know, I think the lowest person on my payroll gets paid like the highest person at most restaurants around here. That's why we're able to keep people. It's also why we don't have a problem hiring people like all these other places around here. Because we got people on backup, just one after another, that's ready to come work there, and they're like talented. Yeah. So
what a beautiful business model, because it's like, I feel like, you know, I mean, my partner Chris, you know, for people that aren't familiar with me personally, you know, he's in the seafood distribution industry, so he's like, he's the backdoor man. Yeah. I'm not going to make a joke about that. And he so he's constantly, you know, he knows all these kitchens and knowing what goes into it, and it's so hard to keep people you know, everyone needs help, and we are such a food-driven community. People come to Charleston because they want to eat, they want to drink, they want to immerse themselves in an experience, and so that is like amazing that, you know, it's like, okay, how can you become the most attractive restaurant in Charleston? And it's like, for the people that are in the industry. Yeah. And it's like, provide stability, compensate people for their time, for their energy, for their genius, and
make them feel like it's part of the operation. Yeah. And then also maintain and showcase through your work ethic and just your ability to get down on your hands and knees and be a step stool for everyone.
Yeah.
And then you don't need as many people too. And my labor's actually down. Wow. So
that's so awesome, because it's like, yeah, I mean, we could spout statistics about the most expensive thing, it's like how much does it cost to bring on a new client versus maintaining a client relationship. So from a staffing perspective, to keep somebody on, and maybe they're paid a higher premium, for them to be there, but at the same time, how much energy goes into if one person walks away and then everyone has to pick up the slack of the learning curve for the new staff, as well as the time it takes to get them up to speed, and it affects everything. So that's like, that sounds, it's like that's such a high energy to be able to be in that environment.
It also helps in terms of its own marketing too, because then you have your actual employees speaking highly about you amongst the community.
Yep.
So that's really attracting for people.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yes, we like that. So I love that something that you mentioned was one of what's the best advice that anyone has ever given you? And oh yeah, we did our disclaimer if there's cuss words and things in this. Yeah, we're good. All right. Yeah, so what's the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
Fuck the bullshit.
What does that mean to you, Shaun?
It's like, so you can really apply it to almost anything. And really it comes down to just not becoming complacent with, like, don't subside to your standards. Don't be less of something because of the environment that you're around. Don't allow it. And when you do is when you can't stop it, and it becomes a chain effect and just keeps falling over like dominoes. But if you can start to focus on the positive around you and what you want to create, then you can do it, And if you just like stand up for yourself, take care of yourself, and put yourself first, then you can put all the people that you really care about, that you want to put before yourself. You can truly do that. So it's very difficult, and it takes regular daily reminders. And I think whether you post credos around your restaurant that sort of like, go in line with the standards that you want to uphold, you're able to maintain it. But it really just takes a mindset and reminding yourself to maintain it. But that's fuck the bullshit.
I mean, I kind of want that tattooed across my forehead in backwards so I can see it every time I look in the mirror. I mean, that's like...
You can just write it on your mirror.
All right, well, okay, not on
your forehead.
On the mirror, not on the forehead. Take a note of that, Madeline, please. Okay. No, that's like drop the mic material to recognize, just because people are complacent, or they're not, if they're not upholding a certain standard, that when you're in integrity, if you know that you expect things to be done a certain way, it's like, no, don't tolerate that. And like, I think, we just went and visited a friend after we filmed in North Carolina, and, they're dog trainers. And one thing that she taught me is, she was like, we get what we tolerate. And that's something I've heard from Tony Robbins as well. But it's like, if you're frustrated at people are doing a slack job or whatever, it's like, you somehow have set the standard of either not speaking up when you saw little glimpses of that becoming and growing, and we get what we tolerate. Yeah,
and your frustration just rubs right off on them.
Yeah.
And then they start turning into you. It's almost, especially in kitchens, but also with training dogs, because I love dogs, love training them too. But it's like who you are is who they mirror. And man, I mean, complacency is like the key to all that, I think. And that's just where, if you can change a sense of complacency and uphold the standards you want through really addressing it when it happens, then you, reduce the stress that you deal with, which is probably like the number one thing in the world that's, making people sick, mentally, physically. You can change your world in front of you. So
I love it. what are practical things you said, to set up reminders throughout your day, because it's not something that's necessarily like, oh, you just wake up one day and you like know how to get out of your own way, right? What are things in your own life that are simple triggers that inspired that line of energy?
So I think social media can be used in like positive ways, although it has a lot of negatives to it. So follow people that inspire you. Also, like follow people who help set your positive mindset that you want to have daily. I have a friend here who is my chiropractor, and every morning she writes down her mantra that she wants for the day, and that's an amazing thing. And guess what? I don't do it. And I told her, I was like, it's like you're writing my mantra every day. I just read your mantra and then I'm good to go. So that's an easy way to do it. And then also, credos are amazing tools. I learned that at the Ritz-Carlton when I was, doing my externship there, and they just had an amazing, like, whole shell and to their whole operation. And I took so much away from how they manage their properties, especially this was in the time when it was still like at the height of hospitality in the whole world. And I remember their credo, and I was like, I need my own credo.
So break down what a credo is.
So a credo is really like your standards, essentially. It's what you believe in, what applies to your surroundings. It's in like my kitchen. It's not about cooking for me. It's about cooking for guests. It's about every day trying to be your best, to try to achieve perfection, but also knowing that there is no thing as perfection, and it's just really like, it's a journey, and it's evolving. It doesn't stop changing, and it doesn't stop growing. And as long as you understand that, then it's not as complicated, or you don't feel so pressured to like get it all out at once. It's just something that you build, and your mentors help influence it. So like people like Levon Wallace, one of my mentors, really helped me understand humility and how to cook for my heart and how to cook for nostalgia instead of just cooking, like, oh, this is super badass, and this is like, this is, sort of that smug culinary industry of like, oh, I'm doing a film, man, and doing this molecular gastronomy, but it doesn't taste good, or it doesn't. You're taking something that
it
was
looks
beautiful.
Fancy as shit, but I don't want to eat it again.
And like you just took something that was already perfect, and then you actually made it less perfect, if you will. Like the farmer already put all the energy into it. You taste it, and let's just use a peach, for example, because this place has some of the best peaches I've had in my life. You don't need to do anything to it. You can just like highlight it and uplift it, and it's sort of like how you become a good leader in a kitchen. It's not about you. It's not about how good you are. It's about how you can get your team to strive to be better every day and understand your mission and your operations mission and cook for people and not just cook for yourself. So, and really be a step stool, and help uplift everyone, because then you really achieve like camaraderie, accomplishments, productivity, and it just keeps rolling.
I mean, and how much does that translate into anybody doing anything they want to scale and offer good in the world? Whether you're, we film, and yet it's like, if I want to create amazing experiences for clients, if it's all about me and how great I do it, and it's like, if I believe that I'm the shit, I'm the top, how can I ever create more momentum and help more people's lives and have that scaling capacity like you're describing? If you're the number one chef and blah blah blah, it's all about you, well then dang, the moment you step away, that's a castle made of cards.
You really can't grow from there. You can get so far, but eventually when people start digging, they'll find that there's nothing there. And I think that the way that people break sort of out of that shell is one through hard lessons in life. You know, you have to hit rock bottom. You have to fall on your ass. The way that I've always helped people grow into that is by stepping away, like literally just sort of being like, all right, you're ready. You need this. You know, I don't even really tell them what's going on or that there is an angle to that, because I do feel that they're capable and they can do it. But I also feel that if I don't step away, then they'll never realize what I actually did to get there. And so sometimes, whether it's just in one day and allowing them to have a shitty service and to see that they don't know everything, that helps them realize it. Time, just coming of age helps. And then, like, if it's more severe, like literally like letting go completely, you know, like almost like a relationship. You know, if you really want to test how strong it is, then sometimes the best thing to do can be to let it go and see if you find each other again.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, there's so much sweetness to those words.
Yeah, it's really about love, you know, because it's about, if you can do that, then you really care about someone, because otherwise you just become an enabler, you know, and we all seen that shit too much.
Yes.
So.
Oh my gosh. Speaking my language over here. I love it. Yeah, I mean, yes. I want to close and bring things to a full circle of, Shaun, what's your happy place?
Oh, my happy place. It's really the ocean. It's water. For me, spearfishing, I'm not the best at it, you know, and I don't think that's important in life. A lot of people are always chasing that. But I've always been around water, and it's always surrounded me. And being underwater just has like a mystique to it that just sort of cancels everything out, and you're just able to be completely in the moment in your surroundings. And so that's definitely my happy place, where you can just see things that you've never seen before. Even if you've been swimming there like 80 times, I always find new stuff.
I love that. That resonates with me as well. And we just had an underwater photographer on the podcast, and that was literally like, that's like a same heartbeat. You know, when people have that water baby, you know, you're like, there's something, the moment the sound, the like sensory deprivation,
yeah.
And then it's like you're just like laser beamed into the here and now. I love it. Okay, so Shaun, how can people get in touch with you or follow along, or, you know, how can they cross paths with you?
Well, I'm a pretty open person, so you can follow me on my Instagram, which I interact with on the regular. That's at Chef Shaun, Shaun, Brian, Brian, and it's pretty straightforward. Facebook, not so much.
Yeah, I know.
You can connect with my grandpa on there. Twitter, hell no.
Yeah. Not doing any of that.
No, I'm good. You can find me at Parcel 32.
That's right.
We have a closed door kitchen, but our doors are always open. So I always tell people, feel free to come say hi. You know, make sure you make yourself known so we can come show some Parcel 32 love.
Yes, y'all do such a good job of that.
Thank you. It takes a village.
So get in the restaurant, try that octopus dish that he was talking about. Try some of their desserts, are some of my favorite things that I've ever experienced in this lifetime. Shaun, thank you so much again for taking the time to be with us.
It was a blast.
Oh, yes. And for all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.